ramp to the parking garage looks like your best way in.
What's up, agents? How y'all doing? Hope everybody's hanging in there, being as safe as you guys need to be. Sorry I'm not making videos as often, unfortunately. I'm going to try to get back to the game. I am enjoying some of what they've been doing. Some of it's hit or miss. The prototype idea is good. The implementation has been a little bit rough. But overall, I like the idea of the prototype gear. So today I wanted to go over the build that I am primarily using to run in match-made groups at tier 6. So this is my classic Stinker CQC build. So this is one of my oldest builds that I've been running since the very beginning of this game, but with the brand new iteration utilizing all prototype gear. So this is essentially a 4-piece hardwire build utilizing the Stinger Hive and the Cluster Seeker mines. So let's jump right on into the build. If you guys dig this, if you guys have any content you want to see, any questions or anything, do me a favor, leave a comment down below. Let me know what's good. All right, we're just going to jump straight into this build. I'm going to try to keep this video a little bit shorter than most of them. We're just going to quickly look at the specs, look at the stats, see what you could do if you wanted to replicate this. So first off, as far as the specialization goes, we're going to be using the Demolitionist. The primary reason is for the 10% bonus explosive damage we can get. This is multiplicative with all the skill damage bonuses that we're going to get in the game. So this is one of the biggest bangs for the buck right here, is the 10% explosive damage. You do get access to the artillery turret using the Demolitionist. We're not going to be using it in this build, but it is super powerful. You guys have probably seen it. And I do recommend checking it out and trying it out if you have not. You get the Brace for Impact, which means that every 60 seconds you can basically ignore the first explosion that hits you. This is really big, especially as you get into the higher tiers where you're taking substantially more damage. You get the 5% damage to targets out of cover for your group. Unfortunately, you don't benefit from this. But again, like I was saying, this is for a match-made group build for tier 6. So, by the way, this should work in higher tiers. I just tend to run it in tier 6 because I'm doing match made. I'm not running with anybody I know. If I was actually talking to people, coordinating, this build would actually work for the higher end content also. And lastly, as far as the specialization goes, we're expecting the 15% bonus damage for the AR. This is because we're using capacitor. 15% bonus weapon damage for the shotgun because we're using the MOP. And then I got SMG on there because I sometimes want to use an SMG, and we're using the quick step, but we're not going to be firing it. You guys know what the quick step's for. That being said, let's just go over the weapons. Primary weapon we're going to be using is the capacitor. So this is an assault rifle. If you can, get the damage to targets out of cover. That way you can get the wombo combo of damage to armor, damage to targets out of cover. What this will do is every bullet that hits will stack up. You'll get one stack. Each stack is 1.5 skill damage. This means you can stack up to 60% skill damage when it max stacks with the capacitor. The second part of the capacitance perk reads that you gain 7.5% weapon damage for each skill tier that you have. Now, at first, this is a bit deceiving because people would look at the build and say, okay, you got 5 different pieces of gear, that's 37.5% weapon damage. But you got to remember, these are prototype pieces. So some of these are 1.5 skill tier. So for every 2 pieces, that's 3 skill tier. So this build actually has 52.5% additional weapon damage for the capacitor because we have those extra skill tiers. Also, you'll notice that our capacitor and our MOP are both level 30, so the expertise is maxed out on both of these. Now, the second weapon that I use, and it's my primary weapon right now while I'm trying to get experience for the augment. Once the augment is fully maxed out, then I'll go back to having the capacitor as the primary weapon. But we're using the MOP. So this is a shotgun that intrinsically comes with 10% armor on kill. When you prototype it, that automatically goes up to 15% armor on kill. Unfortunately, I was not lucky with mine, and it did not give me any bonus to the damage to armor, nor the weapon damage, the shotgun damage. So that was kind of a bummer. You will notice that we have in sync on this. So when procced correctly, this is a 30% bonus to weapon damage and to skill damage. Not as much as the capacitor, but easy to proc pretty quick, and it's half the damage. We also have Anomaly as our augment on here, which is a super powerful augment for skill builds. And this basically, any damage we do with a skill, we get a percentage of that returned as armor. We will talk more about that in just a moment here. All right, agents, I'm adding this in post-production because I forgot to add this in, and this is so important. So the big thing about Anomaly, why it's the best healing source in the game, is it does not just start healing your armor. It actually heals your health first. So we're about to watch this in slow motion, but you'll see we get damage gated multiple times on crit hits that should have killed us because we're getting that healing going. So yeah, Anomaly is an exceptionally strong skill. Even if you were to have one piece of Anomaly gear on a DPS build and you're using, say, a striker drone or something like that, that small bit of healing could help to have multiple damage gates. So I just wanted to show that just because, and you guys will watch right here. Look at, I have no health, and watch this. Watch how quickly we're back to max. Boom, there's all of our health back almost, and now just everything instantly back. So much survivability. All right, now back to the mop I think we were talking about. So our mop is getting us armor back on kill and on damaging enemies. So this is a great utility weapon. And again, the ability to proc in sync super fast is of extra benefit. Now the last weapon, our sidearm, we're using the quick step. So this is for sport mode. This gives you the 20% bonus movement speed, except for when you're in the dark zone, unfortunately. I have not prototyped this yet, but when I do, I'm hoping to get Anomaly on this. Why would I want Anomaly on a quick step? Well, as I'm running, I'm trying to run past enemies. You know, you'll be sprinting past a group of enemies. They will get aggroed. They'll start shooting at you. You're taking damage. If I'm using the Seeker Mines, I can drop them. They'll go back. And so I can keep running. My Seeker Mines hit. It'll heal me. So it's a bit more survivability right there. If I'm, say, using a turret or a striker drone, I can send out the striker drone or drop the turret. These will do damage and will continue to heal me as I run away. So that's why I would be looking for Anomaly on the quick step as well. All right, so now let's talk about the actual gear, brand sets, and exotics we're going to be using, essentially our equipment. We, of course, are going to be going with a 4-piece hardwire set. This is to make sure that we can get as many cluster mines out as quickly as possible. All of these hardwire pieces I have are forged prototypes. That's what I call them. When I actually upgrade them myself, I'm just referring to them as forged. And because we're doing a gear set and there's only one minor mod, what that means is we are guaranteed to get that maxed out. So that means I had skill damage on every hardwire piece. That guaranteed that every one of those was going to be 15% skill damage. So we do have our skill damage maxed out in that regard. Also recognize that if we have 4 pieces of hardwire that are prototyped, that would be 1.5 skill tier per, so we would have 6 skill tier right there. Because we have some other pieces of gear that have skill tier, that means you'll notice one of my hardwire pieces, I actually rolled it into armor to get a bit more survivability. Now, had I kept that as skill tier, remember that would translate to extra weapon damage with the capacitor, so there is a trade-off by getting more armor. I do lose out on some weapon DPS. So also keep in mind, because of the prototype upgrading, this means instead of having 40% extra skill damage from the hardwire pieces, from the minor attributes, we have 60%. So that's pretty big right there. Also, we are using the backpack from hardwire, which comes with the short circuit talent. Let me quickly go over what the 4-piece bonus does. So the 2-piece bonus gives us 15% extra skill haste. You add in the 3-piece, that's going to give us 15% skill damage and 30% repair skill. Now we add in the 4th, and that's the big one, feedback loop. What feedback loop does is upon proccing it, it will reset your other skill. If it's a Singer Hive, unfortunately, it'll give you 1 charge, but if the cluster mines, it'll give you your cluster mines back. Additionally, Feedback loop will give you plus 10% additional skill damage and repair skill. So that buffs the 15% skill damage bonus we get from the 3-piece bonus up to 25%. This bonus lasts 20 seconds. So once you're in battle, you will basically keep this refreshed the whole time. Unfortunately, you can't get a stacking bonus, but you can stack up the amount of time that it lasts. So you can get feedback loop lasting for a long time. And the backpack talent is Short Circuit, which cuts down the feedback loop cooldown from 10 seconds down to 5 seconds. So it is possible with optimized gameplay to be putting out cluster mines about once every 5 to 6 seconds. Now, as far as brand set, we are going to be using China Light chest piece. The China Light will, and first of all, this is a forged piece. Unfortunately, I had status effects in the top slot, so it upgraded the status effects, not the skill damage. So this is the 1 weak link. We could theoretically have 5% more skill damage in this build if I had the perfect chest piece, which I don't. But so we're running 1 piece of China Light with the chest. This gives us the 15% explosive damage. So we add this with the demolition, that's 25% explosive damage, which is multiplicative with all the skill damage we do. So that's a great multiplier right there. The China Light, because it's prototype, that's 1.5 skill tier, so keep in mind that does buff the weapon damage that we get from the capacitor. So we have the 15% status effects, 10% skill damage, and we are running glass cannon on this. So while glass cannon does have the side effect that you take 50% more damage from every source, it means all the damage we do is multiplied by an additional 1.25. So real quick, that means right now, whatever skill damage bonuses that we have additive with our damage, we are then multiplying that by 1.25 for the explosive damage bonus we have, and then multiplying that again by 1.25 for the glass cannon. So as you can see, the damage that we're putting out is multiplying rather quickly with this build. Now, lastly, as far as the exotic, we're going to be going with the Waveform. This is simply because there's no other exotic in the game right now that is giving us anywhere near this amount of extra skill damage for nothing more than just playing the game. So the Waveform gives us plus 10% skill damage and skill haste, and it comes with alternating current. And basically, this stacks up 1 skill. It gets a stack every second for 10 seconds. Each stack is 3% skill damage. What this effectively does is means that over the course of 10 seconds, you'll get 30% skill damage built up onto a skill, which lasts for 10 seconds, and then it starts transferring over to your other skill. That means each of these skills will have a range of damage, right? It'll have a low and a high that you'll be operating with, but overall, this is always going to be a damage bonus. All right, quickly, let's talk about mods. We have 3 mod slots in this, so we're going to be using 2 skill haste mods. This will give us a total of 24% additional skill haste. And we're going to be slotting in 1 incoming repair mod. Since we are using glass cannon, we are taking a little bit more damage. I just like to be able to repair a little bit more. Since our cluster mines are already at that 31-second cooldown that I like to hit, it's perfectly fine. If I put the other mod in there, I'll drop it down to 30 seconds, and actually that increases the chances of us accidentally not proccing hardwire. Don't go any lower than that. While it seems a benefit, it's not. And you can squeeze in either a critical hit chance, crit hit damage mod, or like I said, I like the incoming repairs because this will buff the repair from both the mob's armor on kill as well as any repairs from anomaly. All right, so that being said, let's quickly talk about the augments. I talked about the augment on the mop, which is anomaly. And as far as hierarchy, for any skill build, anomaly, I believe, is the #1 perk. If I had anomaly on every single piece, that would be perfectly fine. After anomaly, I do like quantum. Quantum gives you a chance to be immune to damage. Since we're running glass cannon, this could be a benefit. And then beyond that, I think there's no reason, I think most of you would agree, we would just go for Echo. If I'm going to do anything that requires me to shoot my gun, whether it would be applying a status effect, reducing skills, why don't I just have my gun do double damage, right? So that's would be what I would go with there. All right, guys, so once again, I just quickly want to talk about, remember how this damage bonus is going to be multiplying up. Whatever skill damage bonuses you have that are additive, the plus skill damage, They are then going to be multiplied by the explosive damage bonus of 1.25, and then all that damage is then going to be multiplied at the end of the equation for glass cannon, another multiplier of 1.25. So again, this stacks up really quick. All right, lastly, let's talk about the skills. So we're going to be on the L1, I'm going to be using my Stinger Hive. So this is maxed out at level 30 expertise. Each charge refills in 2.8 seconds, and I have 18 charges on this. Now, the initial damage that hits, the initial Stinger Blast, is considered explosive damage, and it's going to do between 1.39 million and get, I think 1.387 is actually what it sits at, and it goes all the way up to just over 1.5 million. The bleed on this is going to be about 65k per tick, and it will last 8.1 seconds. Remember, that's to the red bars. The higher tiered enemies actually have certain resiliences, so don't be surprised if you see your bleed only lasting about 4 or so seconds on elites. As far as mods on the Stinger Hive, so we have a +5 damage mod, we have a +4 charges mod, and we have a +5 duration mod. And the way that we use the Stinger Hive, there's two different ways that I use it. One is area denial. You can use it right on yourself to deny them from, invading you with melee damage. You can toss it into a certain area to block a doorway or a certain avenue. Use it as area denial. And also, if you are out of charges, if I don't have any Stinger Hive charges, remember every 2.8 seconds, you can basically toss one out and I'll use it as a grenade. And remember, while I'm doing that, it's still going to be proccing the Seeker Mines almost every time. So you're still going to be putting out significant damage even if you don't have a bunch of Hive charges. And in the R1, the big damage dealer, my favorite skill in the game, the Cluster Seeker Mines. Yeah, they're easy to use. You don't really have to think about it, but they're so much fun. We got a 31-second cooldown on these guys. There's going to be 10 mines coming out, and they each have a 2-meter radius. I am at level 30 on these as well as far as the expertise goes. One note is that each enemy can only be tracked by one cluster mine, but remember, if enemies are grouped up, the overlapping damage can, you can have multiple mines hit multiple enemies as long as they are grouped up. And the damage you should expect to see is between 3.7 to 4.2 million as the base damage. As far as the mods, unfortunately, I cannot believe it. I only have a 4.9% damage mod. As long as I've been playing this game, I still have not gotten the top 5% damage mod, but I'm sure you guys all have it now. That's just my bad luck. We go with the +1 cluster mine mod and another +5 damage mod. So what's the point of the cluster mines? Real easy. It's to do damage. And the other thing is, when you're playing in a group, when we're putting out these mines so repetitiously, it means the enemies are jumping out of cover to avoid being damaged by the mines. And remember that we're also giving everybody in our group that extra 5% damage to targets out of cover. So we are effectively making sure the enemy cannot hunker down. They're busy moving. The more that they're moving, the less that they're shooting at our buddies. And it means while they're moving, they are technically out of cover. So the last thing I will mention is, while you can throw your mines and it's super effective, if you're playing against a Chunga, the big tank enemies that kick your mines, throw the mines behind them. They will not kick the mine if the mine's coming from behind them. However, this delays how quickly you can put out the mines. If you want to put out the mines as quickly as possible, what you're going to want to do is simply drop them at your feet. This will mean that you can put out mines roughly every 5 to 6 seconds if you use that technique, versus every 8 to 10 seconds if you're actually throwing them, possibly longer if you're throwing them a long ways. All right, guys, so I hope you dig this. I got a lot of builds I'm messing with, but this is kind of my go-to now. The two builds I really use is this, the Astrone build and this build. All right, that being said, do me a favor. If you guys enjoy this, smash that like button. Would be greatly appreciated. Hopefully by now I've earned your guys' subscriptions. Best thing you can do to help my channel is to share this video. And anything you would do differently, any way that you are running this, or anything you guys want to see in the future, do me a favor, leave a comment down below. Hopefully I will get to coming out with some more versions of videos. I am looking at releasing a new healer build sometime soon. I don't know if anybody's still using healer builds, but I did farm up a future initiative prototype healer build. So I do want to show you guys that. And it uses the new, I forget the name of the new name chest piece, but it uses the new perfect empathic resolve. So I think that this will be an actual awesome support build that will really buff team damage. So let me know if you guys want to see that. Y'all be as safe as you need to be, and I'll check you all in the toxic dark zone. Peace out, everybody.
System disrupted. Serious trauma detected. System restored. Agent needs assistance. System curtailed.
Third rock from the sun. Power may not be the
System
center of our
reactivated.
universe, but so far it is the only planet where life has been known. In the vast reaches of space, it's irrational to think that our little planet is the only place capable of creating and sustaining life. We know that Mars once had vast oceans.
System back online.
Flowing water, as evidenced by these images. At one point, more than 3.8 billion years ago, to one-third of the Martian surface could have been covered by ocean. Aircraft has sent out evidence of more recent water gullies, tribes, present on the surface of Mars only have been formed in a liquid water environment. Today, water found on Mars largely ice at the Martian North Pole, although small quantities
Agent, have Isaac scan the parts. Setting a recovery team. Link up with them and you'll be done there.
Components identified. Suggested use. Missile construction.
They must be using a casing from the museum's collection. If they can rig it with a warhead and some means of propulsion, they wouldn't even need a guidance system to hit the White House or a settlement.
Kinda goes without saying, but if you see any missiles lying around, make sure they can never, ever be used.
Agent down. System restored.